Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And if you have, you're a thrifty shopper because the app is free. And it is sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your take at 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show using that number. Now, I'll just tell you that, and you know this, I don't have to tell you, but I will anyway because I am paid by the word. Today is not usually a great day for sports talk radio, right? First Monday with no football. Baseball hasn't started yet. All we have are all-star games in the NHL and the NBA, and we usually spend this day every year talking about how meaningless and bad they are. My building right now, well, Jeff Haber just showed up, so shouts to Jeff for coming in. Some people were in the morning, but the building is at like minimum capacity. It is Jeff and I. That is it in the building. And on a day like today, I am questioning my life choices of why I'm coming in when nobody else is. But today, this year is different. Now, don't get me wrong. I will continue to question my life choices because I do that on a daily basis. But today is actually a great day to be here because the NHL and its players have fixed our perpetual annual All-Star Game problem.
Brothers are on the ice, flanking Jack Eichel and John Cooper. Look out! They're going to drop the gloves right away. Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel. Right off the hop.
I don't think we're done. No, I don't think so either. Parayko's just waiting and yep. Sam Bennett, Brady Tkachuk. So the Tkachuks both get involved early. And Sam Bennett's not going to back down even though he's outweighed. What a tilt. What a start.
Sportsnet Canada on the call with those, kind of a medley, if you will. And there was more after that, but we'll stick with those two for now. The solution to our perpetual annual All-Star Game problem has always been right there in front of every one of these leagues, except maybe the NFL. NFL, I don't know what you do, but it's okay because we're all using the Sunday of the Pro Bowl to do other things, getting ready for Super Bowl week. But every other league has this right in front of them all the time. Think about it. This summer, we had the Olympics. How awesome were those? How great was the basketball? 2 years ago, we had teammate versus teammate, Shohei Ohtani striking out Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic. How great was that? They have had the answer because you and I have been discussing this for a while. The only potential fix to our perpetual annual All-Star Game problem is to slap each of these players' flag on their jersey and say, your team USA, your team Canada, your team France, your team world, whatever machination you want to use, but it is playing for country. That's the answer. And of all people, of all the commissioners that could have possibly thought this up, it was Gary Bettman. I know that might be the most shocking part of this whole thing is that the NHL and Gary Bettman figured it out first. They said, no All-Star game. We're going to do this Four Nations face-off, and we're not going to care about a popularity contest or anything like that. We're picking, in our mind, the four strongest hockey nations. We're going to put a bunch of dudes who are representing those countries. Are all those guys all-stars? No. But we don't care. Do we care? No, not really. Because they're Team USA, they're Team Canada, they're Team Finland, they're Team Sweden. Forget East versus West. Forget young versus old. Forget putting money on the line. Put USA on the jerseys. That's the answer. That's it. That's the thing that can still motivate these athletes. Think about it. They have more money than they know what to do with. So constantly offering them more money as a reward for trying hard doesn't work. To dream up all of these interesting, well, what they think are interesting storylines, to put home court advantage, home field advantage. They've tried 1,000 different things. The only thing that works over and over and over again is playing for country. And you saw in the Olympics. And I'll be honest, I did not know what to expect from the Four Nations. It was certainly more welcome than the NHL All-Star game, but I didn't know what it would be. It's the first time they've ever done this. I knew it was a better alternative than the garbage all-star product that the NHL's been churning out for years. But I didn't know what level it could go to, how great it could be. And the answer is great. Greater than great. Awesome. Phenomenal. I just got done spending my afternoon because, hey, I'm the only one in the building. No one can tell me to get back to work. And technically, watching sports is my work. I watched the entirety of the Canada-Finland game, but the last 2 minutes of that hockey game provided more entertainment than the entirety of NBA All-Star Sunday night. And that was on for what, 7 hours? I could have fit in both Infinity War and Endgame watching that thing, and I didn't even get 2 minutes of entertainment out of that. Canada-Finland was a blowout. Canada was in complete control of that game, and yet because Finland was playing with their country's flag on their sweater, they didn't stop. They didn't quit. They didn't give up, and they made it really interesting at the end, and Canada ends up prevailing. But, man, that was a wild ride for 2 minutes. Adam Silver keeps throwing his new idea. I just saw it reported today. Adam Silver's new idea that he's banding about in his head is to do a one-on-one tournament, which sounds interesting, but with $1 million prize at the end. Does he really think he's going to get that's the answer? That he's going to get the desired result? There's no way. There's no way. You'll get about 3 or 4 guys that will be all in, and everyone else is like, no way. You think 40-year-old LeBron James, as great as he is still playing, is going to want to match up one-on-one with Kyrie Irving? There's no way this thing will work. But that's always Adam Silver's idea. I'll just throw money at him. More money, more money. In-season tournament, you get $1 million at the end. None of it improves the product because these guys aren't motivated by money. They could probably make a 30-second Instagram video and make $1 million. You get Adam Silver's idea is I'm just going to keep throwing more money at these guys. It doesn't work. Roger Goodell. Again, I don't know the answer for the NFL. Abolish it is what I'm thinking. But like his all-star game consists of tug-of-war and flag football. It's impossible to watch. Baseball, even, usually held up as the last bastion of good all-star games, has now devolved into a 3-hour talk show with the comedy stylings of Alex Rodriguez and David Ortiz blabbing in the ear of the center fielder for the National League. Even the one sport that still can hang on to some semblance of this is what you get for the entire season, except with all the best players. And they still have found ways to screw it up. And here comes the NHL. Again, of all leagues, the NHL goes, why don't we just get 4 countries, get their best players? We don't care if they're having a great season this year or not. That's on each individual country to decide who they'll include. Let's slap USA and Canada and Finland and Sweden on their chest and see what happens. We got the Olympics coming up in another year. Let's give it a shot. And it's awesome. It is so good. But as much credit as Gary Bettman deserves, and he deserves credit, he needs to share some of that with the Tkachuk brothers. Whatever happens Thursday in the final, not Team USA, just Matthew and Brady should be invited to the White House. And they should be thanked with some sort of medal for saving all-star games. Because the idea wasn't theirs, but how that game on Saturday night started was their idea. Here's Brady Tkachuk on where that idea to drop the gloves right away came from.
There's a little discussion during the day, and
Yeah,
there's a group chat going on today. So still something a baby though, but you know what? And then we just kind of reaffirmed that we're gonna do that. And I think Matthew's fight to start off was just such an energy boost. I think I was more excited, more nervous than my own, and then Millsy to cap it off to go against a big guy like that. I think he did a great job, and I think it was a pretty awesome experience.
And there's a lot of layers to the why in all of this. And yes, I don't think it was their main motivation, but there is a political aspect to what made Saturday night what it was. Right? They knew that the Canadians there in Montreal were going to boo the national anthem. They've been going in. Brady sees it firsthand. He plays for Ottawa. Every night they're singing both anthems, and what's happening in Ottawa, what's happening in Montreal. The national anthem's getting booed. And I'm not here. You know why. You know why they're booing the national anthem of America. You know that. I don't have to get into it. And I'm not even here to have that discussion on whether they should or they should not. But what I'm telling you is that's part of it. Because regardless of why Canada is booing our national anthem, that's our nation's anthem. Right? And I don't want to, as much as we try to separate politics and sport, they inevitably intertwine all the time. All the time. So the stick to sports is like, come on, you don't watch sports. You don't understand that. If you think the two could be separate, they get intertwined all the time. So, but we don't need to get into a discussion about the merits of Canadians booing the national anthem. But I can certainly point out the fact that added maybe to the motivation for Team USA to drop the gloves, and certainly provided some more layering on top of everything else on why that was, as a fan of Team USA, so awesome to watch. But we know what the main motivation is, or what the main reason is. It's in their DNA. It's in their blood. 1996. Keith, Papa Tkachuk, dropped the gloves, went after Claude Lemieux. Brady and Matthew have it in their DNA. And Keith raised a couple of absolute madmen. They're like Fulton and what's the other one from Mighty Ducks? They're the Bash Brothers. It was awesome. But it was their lineage. It was the anthem getting booed. It was, the history between Canada and the USA when it comes to hockey. And it just made for one of the coolest sports moments of the year. And everybody ate it up. Everybody ate it up. It was awesome. And you know what the best part about that was? The best part, and if you're a hockey fan, you'll understand where I'm going with this. As a hockey fan, how many games like that have you seen just devolve into goonery? Right? You get a few fights early on and it just continues. And it's retaliation upon retaliation upon retaliation. And that's where the NHL gets a bad rap. Right? When people tune in and are like, oh man, they're dropping the gloves again. This is just UFC. This is just fighting. This isn't a sport. But what was the best part about that, regardless of the result, I mean, obviously, USA. But regardless of the result, what happened after that 9 seconds was an amazing high-octane hockey game played by some of the best in the world. It would have been good just with the hockey. And then you had some hits. Connor McDavid got laid out. It was awesome hockey. For 59 minutes and 51 seconds. It was a great hockey game. As good of a hockey game as I have seen played in years. And then you add on top of it what happened in the first 9 seconds. But the game didn't devolve. It didn't become retaliation after retaliation. You could argue JT Miller, Colton Parayko could have maybe done without that. Maybe that was one too many. Maybe you could argue that. But if you were watching it, and I went back and watched the highlight on Sportsnet Canada, because obviously that's not the feed that I watched it initially. JT Miller's telling his teammates, like, hey, I'm going to go. And he's like, oh, wait, you're going to go first? Okay. So JT Miller already said he was going to fight somebody. So to be fair, but he was acquiescing and allowing the other Tkachuk brother to fight first. But it was those 9 seconds followed by an amazing hockey game. And as great as the last 2 minutes of today's Canada-Finland game was, thank goodness Canada held on to win. Could you imagine the bummer? And it's no disrespect to Finland. Obviously, Mikko Rantanen and Arturi Lehkonen, very popular around these parts. Wish nothing but the best for both of them. We all wanted Canada to win. And now Thursday night, the scene shifts. Think about this, too, this added layer. That game was played in Montreal on Saturday. Now they're going to be in Boston. It's going to be amazing. And how many more people are going to tune in to see the best hockey players in the world because of what happened on Saturday? What a huge win for the NHL and the game of hockey, and for us to be able to watch it. It was great. And it's there it is. And the juxtaposition of that on Saturday with what we witnessed on Sunday night, if you are a glutton for punishment and decided to watch the NBA All-Star game, I did. because I am indeed a glutton for punishment. But the juxtaposition of those two all quote-unquote all-star events, wow, how good does the NHL look and how bad does the NBA look? Well, I'll tell you how bad the NBA looks because I'm going to talk about the All-Star game coming up next. In the meantime, 719-24-7, 1313, just getting going on this Monday here on Extra Sports 1300. Seven one nine 24/7 1313 is the number if you'd like to interact with the show. Bit of knowledge being dropped on the text line. Hey, Kaufman, that wasn't just Sportsnet Canada on the call. That is the great Chris Cuthbert calling the play. Once again, you have been educated. Now get back to work. In order to fulfill my obligations of crediting, I do not have to say who the person is on the call. But yes, And it was a better call. I had the choice between that and the American call. I'll be real about it. Canada's was better. But U.S. won the game. And we'll get a rematch on Thursday night. By the way, the numbers are in. And this is, just with it being what it is, right? The Four Nations, they announced it. It is, the numbers have come in. It was the most watched NHL event in 2 years. And it's the largest average, the only game that surpasses it, and this is a weird way for them to write it, but Game 7 between Edmonton and Florida was higher rated. But it was the largest average audience for a non-Stanley Cup final hockey telecast since 2019. And that was without anybody knowing what Brady and Matthew Tkachuk were going to do. Can you imagine what that number is going to be like on Thursday when those two teams meet up in Boston? Meanwhile, this is what was going on this weekend in San Francisco at the NBA All-Star Game.
Oh, he's not even worried about this shot. They're just going for time. Look at this. This is a unique strategy. It's all about the bounce, the passes. They're not even worried about this.
This has Chris Paul's fingerprints all over it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. See, there's some thinking that went into this.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Now, I wonder if everyone is going to adopt this.
Wait a minute. The crowd is unsettled.
Yes.
The rules are being shoved to the
That's
very
right.
brink.
TNT on the call. That was Saturday. So the skills competition, Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul, because of course Chris Paul, he is a part of a generation that we're going to have a big time discussion about and their impact on the sport and the league. Intentionally missing shots, part of the competition. You make a few passes, you dribble, you shoot, and they just want to get the best time, so they missed all their shots. Intentionally, they were just throwing up. That's how the weekend started for the NBA. And then yesterday happened. And again, the juxtaposition of the NHL having that night on Saturday and what the NBA put out on Sunday makes the NHL look even better and the NBA look even worse. I thought that the new format had some promise for the very same reason that we're eating up the Four Nations face-off. Because they manipulated it so Charles Barkley's team was all foreign-born players except for Trae Young, who filled in for Giannis. So, you got to put him right in there. Got to put him on the same team. Donovan Mitchell's mother is Haitian, so they stretched it a little bit there. But everyone, Jokic, Wembanyama, Şengün from the Rockets, it was all international players. And that's what intrigued me when the teams came down. I'm like, oh, they got some kind of a U.S. versus the world type thing going down. So the format intrigued me. And we actually got that matchup at the end. It was the Steph Curry generation. I call it the LeBron, but he couldn't be bothered to play. The Steph Curry generation of player going up against these international players. We actually got that in the final. Now, part of it, the Team Chuck, led by Nikola Jokic, did not play well. They played like straight up garbage in that final. So, but that might happen on occasion, right? You're going to get, but at least you got those two teams. Here's the issue. Everything else about yesterday was terrible. I'll get into all of the terribleness in a minute, but I just want to drive home the point that that's what the NBA should look at. They should see what's going on with the NHL and say, we're going to do that. Imagine Steph, who I will give a little bit of credit. Steph tried to put on a show. He couldn't be bothered to be in the three-point contest, but at least he played in the All-Star game and he tried to put on a show in front of his home fans. So I give Steph Curry a little bit of credit. But Steph, Anthony Edwards, KD, LeBron, if he can be bothered to play. And how about this? So LeBron gets selected, right? So it's another resume line on his resume, right? However many All-Star, 20 All-Star games, whatever. He goes. And then at the last second, he has foot soreness and can't play. So did you think you were going to play and then it flared up on you? Or was this an elaborate scheme to make sure that LeBron James was part of the All-Star weekend because you couldn't bear the thought of the All-Star game going on without you, even though you now keep a deserving player who got snubbed from being able to compete and your team is a man down? So good on you, LeBron, for once again making it all about yourself. But if he's healthy and he plays, and then you get Bam Adebayo, because Anthony Davis, let's be honest, he's not going to be healthy for next year's All-Star game. So you go Steph, KD, LeBron, Anthony Edwards, and Bam as a starting five for Team USA. And then you go Shea, Luka, Giannis, Wemby, and Jokic. And then you fill out the rosters. Don't care. We shouldn't even care how many All-Star games anybody goes to because it's meaningless. For the starters, it's a popularity contest. Players back out and players get called. Like, look at the Pro Bowl. Russell Wilson and Drake May were Pro Bowlers. How pathetic is that? That should be stricken from their resume. Like, it's meaningless. They were like the fifth and sixth guys on the list. We should not care anymore about all-star appearances. That's done. We shouldn't care that Jamal Murray is snubbed. We shouldn't care that Aaron Gordon's snubbed. We shouldn't care that LeBron is a 20-time all-star. Doesn't matter. It's a popularity contest, and you're inevitably going to get people that are called only because of injury. So I don't care how deserving these guys are. Let Team USA and Team World figure it out who's deserving and who would be the best players on that team. Coincidentally, you might actually get Jamal Murray in an all-star game if they went to that format. But that's what they should do. Look at the Olympics. Look how great that we were even pulling for LeBron. We were rooting for LeBron James. And if Joel Embiid would have just played for France instead of coming over to the U.S., we would have loved every player on Team USA because we drape ourselves an American flag and we pull for him. LeBron's not a Laker. He's Team USA. Steph's not a Warrior. He's Team USA. And then you showcase this rising tide. And they were talking about last night on the TNT broadcast, the rising tide of international players catching up to the U.S. And we've been having this conversation. How much has the world caught up to us? Well, we'd get to see it. Not to 40. That playing to something was tired the second time they used it. The first time they used it, pretty good. The second time they used it, it was tired, it was worn out, never do it again. Take Team USA, Team World, put them together for the All-Star game. And then maybe, just maybe, you would save your All-Star game too, much the same way that the NHL has. At least for now. NHL should never go back They will, but they should never. The recipe is right there sitting in front of them. And they had like a little bit of that. You could see with the picking of the teams, it's like, oh, they're trying to use this USA versus the world thing. And I was intrigued. I was interested. But everything else around it, they totally screwed up. And yes, the players goofed off. Once again, Kevin Durant takes to social media today. What did he say? Let me see. I think it's more fun to complain about the NBA than to actually watch it. Crazy. Cancel All-Star Weekend. Let's just give everybody a break since we're so miserable around this time. Kevin Durant is Tim Robinson in the hot dog costume, and I think you should leave. Like we're all trying to figure why do you think we all complain about the NBA, Kevin? This is not one of those, oh, we're just divided and everyone likes to complain about everything. That's maybe true, but not about this. We have legitimate gripes. We don't want to complain. I would like to tune in yesterday and not feel like those are 4 hours of my life I can't have back. I would like to tune in and be rewarded for my patronage by watching the best players in the league give a darn. That's what I'd like to see. I mean, I know, Kevin, crazy. I mean, everyone acts like they have no idea what the problem is. Well, why are you all complaining? We showed up. You were present. You were there. Like we saw you. Like his team, when they're up, so y'all play to 40, they have 37 points. They don't have to, it's not blackjack. If you go over 40, you still win. You don't have to hit 40 right on the nose. You could go to 41. So they could have taken a 2, made it 39. By the way, they were doing this while they were playing a bunch of non-all-stars. The Dalton Connect-led Rising Stars. None of these guys are all-stars. And Steph, KD, and their team, Damian Lillard, are sitting there. They must have jacked up 7 straight three-pointers. Missed every single one of them. About 3 of them in, I'm like, just go to the basket. Get 39, get a stop. They were up by a bunch. Get a stop, come back down the other end, and dunk the ball and put an end to this. They're jacking up threes like if they hit 41, they bust. It's pathetic. And they have the audacity to turn it around on us like, why are you all complaining? Because you guys have ruined this. Charles Barkley said it perfectly, as he usually does. Draymond Green is out there on the concourse or outside of the arena saying, oh, these rising stars, they don't deserve to be on the all-star court. And then Charles Barkley comes back inside the arena and speaks for you and I when he says, your generation of players screwed it up, so they have to try all this stupid stuff. Like, you want to talk about the pot calling the kettle black. You want to talk about the guy in the hot dog costume trying to figure out who wrecked the Wienermobile into the side of the clothing store. It's you guys. Oh, but we're just miserable and we like to complain. Why do you think? Why do you think we're all complaining? Just to complain? No. Guess what? There was another all-star event just the night before yours, Kevin Durant, and everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. We don't always just complain to complain. We complain when there's something to complain about. And the effort or lack thereof that you and your peers continue to put out on a year-to-year basis, it's embarrassing. And that's why I say The only thing that could possibly save the NBA All-Star game is Team USA versus the world. The idea that maybe, not even the idea that maybe the world would beat Team USA, that you would lose a basketball game wearing your nation's colors. And put Giannis in put a Greek flag on him and put a French flag on Victor Wembanyama's jersey and let every player on the international team wear their country's colors, including Nikola Jokic, who, again, continues to be one of the biggest offenders. Can't defend him. He hates that thing. And it shows. The most gifted basketball player and passer that we have seen maybe in our lifetimes is airmailing guys and throwing it out of bounds. It's the only way. And I got to tell you, Adam Silver better do it soon. Because this is a microcosm of Adam Silver's NBA that he is actively participating in. I want to get into that subject coming up. 719-247-1313. Just having a conversation with Aaron, who called in during the break, and I think he is representing a growing portion. I don't know how many people he represents, but I think it is a growing portion of basketball fans. Because we're not having a conversation about basketball, the sport. We're having a conversation about the National Basketball Association. We watched the Olympics together. It was awesome. Nothing wrong with that basketball. And Aaron calls in and he says, he's starting to watch more college basketball. And I think there's going to be a growing number of people that are like, I love basketball, but I can't stand the NBA. And now you have NIL. So some of these guys are going to stick around because they're like, hey, I can make a couple $1,000,000 staying at college for another year. And that is a benefit to us, the fan, because now we can kind of, get to know these guys. And, even with the popularity of the WNBA growing, that you're going to see Juju Watkins and Paige Becker's only for the remainder of this year. Hannah Hidalgo, like some of these stars in women's college basketball, you're going to see for 4 years. They're not bolting to the WNBA anytime soon. But it's like we started loving on the WNBA this summer. We love the Olympics. College basketball, March Madness is going to be insanity. SEC might get in all but one of their teams. Like, it is wide open. UConn is not who they were the last 2 years. It's shaping up to be an awesome March Madness. And the popularity of women's college basketball in the WNBA, you notice a trend here? It's not basketball. It's not the sport that is broken. It's a league that is breaking in front of us. And everyone is pointing fingers at everyone else and coming up with terrible ideas. And I wanted to get into the Adam Silver of it all coming up at the top of the hour. I need a little bit more runway with him because I think this is a bigger conversation than just the All-Star game about what's going on with the NBA. But the All-Star game is a microcosm of it. But for now, allow me to air more of my grievances about All-Star Sunday. Okay, so they had an intriguing idea. They went too many teams because I will say this, to agree with Draymond, those rising stars did not deserve to be in that game. Come on now. They have their game. Don't bring them over to the. It cheapens the product. It does. And it's even worse when the Damian Lillard, Steph Curry team can't put this team away because they're jacking up all these threes and can't make them. But those guys don't deserve to be in the game. They had it right. Just America, USA. Just do that. And don't give me the playing to 40. Again, that was good that 1 year because it was a novelty and now it sucks. No more. No more playing to a certain number. Give me 4 quarters and let's play this thing out. But here's the other part. Even if you don't mind the Elam ending playing to a certain number, and you're like, I don't have a problem with the rising stars. You got to have 4 teams. I kind of like the tournament format. Even if some of their ideas were good, the NBA, in true NBA fashion, did everything around it to screw it up. I mean, what are we doing here with, first of all, the court? Can we be done with the courts? To me, it takes whatever product you put on it and completely diminishes it. It looks like well, I guess they have the G League, but like AAA, it looks like Stop with the neon solid 3 different color courts. Like, just stop. You do that with the in-season tournament and they look awful. Stop. Just play it on the Warriors court. Do we need the bright colors to keep us entertained? And in between games, like, so one, we have, and I guess my kids like them, but like this Mr. Beast stunt thing going on where this kid is fighting for his life to beat Damian Lillard in a shootout. And the kid, for it, what it was $100,000 that missed. And I guess he does this. My kids had to fill me in on everything because I guess I'm freaking ancient. But apparently he does this. Like, apparently he's a great guy, does a lot of philanthropic work. It's not anything against Mr. Beast, the person. But he apparently has a show and everything where he does stunts and whatever, people win money. So he puts this kid, high school kid presumably, on the logo against Damian Lillard. And the kid has to make one shot from the logo before Damian Lillard can make 3. Okay? And before they start shooting, the kid goes, I'm going to take care of my family and pay for college. At that point, how in the world can you allow Damian Lillard to beat this kid? He's going to take care of his family and pay for his college. And then you're like, all right, now let's see if you could beat an NBA player. Thank goodness the kid finally made a shot before Damian Lillard made 3. Could you imagine if that kid lost out on that much money for some stupid stunt and the stunt goes over time and Mr. Beast is like, we got to get going. They're going to cut to commercial. Like, just poorly planned, a bad idea. It would be better if you just a shootout with Damian Lillard and the kid missed and you went, you know what, kid, you get the money anyway. That would have been a happy ending for everybody. He gets to high five Damian Lillard and everybody's happy. But they do that for what felt like an hour. It was only like 5 minutes, but it went on forever. And you're just, your stomach is just in knots for this kid because he just keeps missing and missing and missing. So they do that in between one. And then, again, maybe I'm showing my age. I have enough of Kevin Hart in the DraftKings ads. I think I've liked some of Kevin Hart's movies. I think he's kind of funny with LeBron in the DraftKings commercial. The thing turned into a 3-hour Kevin Hart Netflix special. Enough with this guy. There is not the one thing that I could say that they did outside of the games that was actually good. And it kind of makes me rethink. I wasn't on board with the NFL doing, and I guess it's a little apples to oranges because you're talking about the Super Bowl and you need to bring a big name. And some of the New Orleans rappers would not be maybe mainstream enough, but it's funny. They bring up Kendrick Lamar and most of America is like, I didn't get it. So they kind of missed there. They probably would have missed even more if they would have went hyper New Orleans with their halftime show with those rappers. But the one thing I'll say that they did well is they did, it was E40, Too Short, Lotto, and En Vogue, all Bay Area artists doing a medley of their most popular songs. Now, Lotto, she could just literally stand there and I'll tune in. But she did her songs and she samples Too Short's Blow the Whistle, and they had Too Short and E40 and En Vogue, and it was awesome. Why? Because it was short, it was medley, it was playing the hits, it wasn't subversive. You don't have to watch it 8 different times to understand, like Kendrick Lamar. Man, I feel old during this segment, but it's just That was the only good extracurricular thing they did. Way too much Kevin Hart. Didn't need Mr. Beast. I don't need 40 minutes in between the games. Nikola Jokic said it when he was interviewed after the game that his body was tightening up because he had to wait so long. So, like, even when the NBA has some semblance of a good idea, they heap a bunch of crap on top of it and they ruin it. So even if you were intrigued by the concept and you actually kind of enjoyed them playing to 40 and you saw some Steph Curry half quarters and you saw some big dunks by Wemby, even if you enjoyed that, you had to sit through all this other stuff and listen to Kevin Hart try to, wring every word out of that broadcast that he possibly could. And then you go outside to Draymond, who's complaining, even though he's one of the biggest reasons why the NBA has gotten worse over the years. It just, even when the NBA has kind of a good idea, they screw it up because it's like sensory overload. They almost feel like, oh, we can't just put our product out on the court. We got to throw all these bells and whistles with it. And now maybe they actually have a point, now that I'm thinking about it. Because we are complaining about the NBA product. Maybe they do need bright-colored courts. And maybe they do need YouTube stars to put on stunts. Maybe they do need Kevin Hart to drone on and on and on and on during the entire broadcast. Maybe they do because it detracts, or it distracts, I should say. I thought it detracted, but maybe they look at it, it's distracting from the lack of effort put in by the NBA players. It's just terrible. Except for the musical performances. That was good. 719-247-1313. All right, bigger conversation coming up next. Because the NBA All-Star Game, I feel like, is a microcosm of Adam Silver's NBA. And if he doesn't do something about it quick, he might be out of a job. Drive Time Sports on this President's Day. Hopefully you're getting a day off and you're enjoying your day off. And I appreciate you tuning in. Of course, you can watch the show on a daily basis on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. So I'll get back to happier topics like previewing Thursday in the Four Nations. I do want to do that coming up and what we might expect. I am traveling the rest of this week. Air Force women's basketball plays Utah State on Wednesday, Fresno State on Saturday. So I am a little hit and miss this week. So I want to, if anything is coming up this week, I want to get to it while we have time and get your thoughts as well on this Monday, 719-247-1313. So grab my note here. Make sure I don't miss anything. So, Four Nations face-off, awesome. NBA All-Star Game, as terrible as ever. I think Adam Silver is on the clock here. I really do. Because I don't recall seeing a commissioner. Because I don't know that we really liked Bud Selig before the steroid era. Right before we knew about it. I don't think that he was super well liked anyway. I don't recall seeing a commissioner that has fallen from grace quite as hard as Adam Silver. Adam Silver was like the man when he took over for David Stern. Right? He was the guy that announced all the second round picks and everybody cheered him at Madison Square Garden, and he was really popular, and he came in, and it's not like he hasn't had some good ideas. But right now, his league is going down the tubes. It really is. And every idea he comes up with is not helping. Right? Load management. Not his fault, right? But he's the commissioner. It's your problem. You didn't cause the problem, but you got to fix the problem. Okay? Teams are load managing their players. People are paying their hard-earned money and not seeing some of the stars of your league. What are you going to do about it? Well, you know what? You got to play 65 games or you're ineligible to be MVP. Has that motivated Joel Embiid one iota to be on the court? Did Luka Doncic get back from his injury? And I guess he's not talking about somebody like Luka who sustains an injury, but if we are to believe anything about what Dallas said about him, maybe he's not getting back from injury as quickly as he should. Although he popped right back up when the Lakers traded for him. But like Embiid, there's this rule that you got to play 65 games, and then Joel Embiid's answer to it is, I don't think I'm playing back-to-backs. And like it or not, Joel Embiid's the poster child for this. Used to be Kawhi Leonard. Now he's such an afterthought because he's never on the court. Joel Embiid has become the face of it. And Adam Silver comes up with this idea, and Joel Embiid basically says, I already have my MVP. I'm good. You will not see me on the second night of a back-to-back. So that didn't work. To try and make the games before Christmas mean something, right? I'm instituting this in-season tournament. What happened? We complained about the courts. We mocked the Lakers for celebrating that they won that. And I would say 9 out of every 10 sports fans don't even know who won this year. It was Milwaukee, by the way. So that idea, even if it was kind of good at the beginning, now no one cares. And I would argue that most people didn't care to begin with. So please tune into our product before Christmas. Here's an in-season tournament, and everyone's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. In fact, if your players care about it, if LeBron cares about it, we're going to make fun of him because this is stupid. People complain about the product. Games aren't entertaining. It's not a good game. Too much three-point shooting. The officiating, everything like that. We don't like the product. Adam Silver's like, his big answer, and he did it on this radio station on the Dan Patrick Show. His suggestion, his thought, when presented with the idea that his product is worse than it has ever been, his idea was, well, we'll make you sit through less of it. We're going to shorten the games. What? How is that supposed to fix it? So you hate watching the NBA for 48 minutes, and Adam Silver's grand plan to make you fall in love with the NBA again is to make you watch their bad product for 44 minutes. And culminating in last night. If last night was his big idea to fix the All-Star game, didn't work. Huge flop. He's not fixing any of these problems. And then you go the real world stuff. Like a lot of this is surface, right? The in-season tournament, you could get up in arms about it, or you could just not really care. All-Star game, whatever. Half the people don't even like the All-Star game anyway. So, but there's real damage I think he's doing to the product. He's not, all of this other stuff I'm talking about, it's not him that's causing it, but it's him being unable to fix it. But there's some real world NBA stuff that he does have power over, and he's screwing it up. And you know what I'm talking about? He brings in the Supermax, which was a great idea, right? How do you keep players from bolting and demanding trades and forming super teams? Well, it's what his idea for everything is: throw money at it. So now you can pay your homegrown talent more money than anybody else can. It's actually not a bad idea. Pretty good idea. Well received, worked for a little while, and now you slap the second apron onto your league, and now you have a team that is so petrified of the ramifications of signing Luka Doncic to a supermax that they will commit one of the worst trades in the history of the sport in order to not pay him that money. You have a revolving door of champions that just as soon as we start to get familiar with one, start to celebrate one's brilliance, they immediately go away. Right? The bubble Lakers, gone. Yeah, they made a Western Conference, never went back to the NBA final. What happened to Giannis's Bucks? What's happening right now to Nikola Jokic's Nuggets? So he took a good idea and then put a garbage idea on top of it, and now it's making things worse. That you can't sustain success. I think that's my big takeaway with the Nuggets. Calvin Booth has his idea. Michael Malone has his idea. I think both of their ideas are not good. Playing the young kids, not playing the young kids. It's not their fault. It's Adam Silver's. And the owners that he represents. Because let's not forget that Adam Silver is working on behalf of the owners. So let's not forget all of that in this conversation about how bad the NBA is getting. But now he's making it like we don't love super teams, but we do like to kind of get to know these teams. We do. It's powerful to have a villain. Look at the NFL. Right? I know that the Kansas City Chiefs conversation has devolved into something else and people questioning the integrity of the sport. That's not great. But the idea, maybe I won't even use the Chiefs. I'll just go back to the Patriots. Okay, then that way everybody's happy. Then we can all get on the same footing. The Patriots. We didn't like them, but we love for them to be the boogeyman. We love to root against them. Some part of us deep down inside respected the hell out of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick for how good they were. We would never admit it, and we want them to epically collapse in a Super Bowl. But that's powerful. That's part of the reason why we watch sports. And now Adam Silver's taking it away and saying we're just going to have new teams every year. How about that? Well, it's not working out. Ratings are down. Some of these problems are not his fault. Some of them are. But they're all happening under his watch. And I know the start of this. Player empowerment. And this is where I will go away from criticizing Adam Silver and look more towards the guy who at the last minute decided he wasn't feeling good enough to play in the All-Star game. Okay? You had player empowerment, and some of what player empowerment means is actually good. Right? Siding with labor, being in control of where you work, who you work with. That's what we all would like to have with our jobs. We don't begrudge NBA players for that. Okay? But somewhere there was a tipping point where it just became not the league working in concert and allowing the NBA players more say, which I think most of us wanted the NBA players to not be under the thumb of ownership and the commissioner. But you got to know when to rein it in and say, no, you're starting to cross a line here. It's Adam Silver never drew that line. And now he can't get NBA players to do anything for the good of the sport. In fact, he's got either one NBA player in Draymond Green criticizing the All-Star game format, and on the other, you have Kevin Durant going at the fans, as he always tends to do, pointing the finger at us and saying we're just miserable people who want to complain about everything and not looking inward and looking in a mirror and wondering maybe their complaints have merit. Maybe there's something that we're doing. If it doesn't have to be the customer is always right, but maybe just like for a second, listen to the customer. Adam Silver can't get the NBA players to do anything for the good of the league. It is for the good of the league that the All-Star game, especially this season, especially with all the negative conversation surrounding the NBA right now, it is imperative that the players put on a good show at its crown jewel event, at least during the regular season. Imperative that they do that. And yet, they couldn't be bothered. LeBron bails at the last minute. Half the guys on the floor look like they would want to be anywhere else but playing in front of the fans. And I don't want to do the who pays whose salary thing. But maybe Kevin Durant's right. Do away with it. Because I could suggest this USA versus the world thing based on the success of the four nations and point to the Olympics and how much all these guys cared and played hard. Right? They all cared. They all played hard. Maybe try to capture some of that for an all-star game. But knowing NBA players, it's probably a fruitless effort. Kevin Durant's probably right. We should just probably do away with it. But what he doesn't seem to want to comprehend, yes, the Mr. Beast stunts and the Kevin Hart droning on and on and on are a little annoying, are superfluous. We don't need it. We don't want it. We're not asking for it. But if we got a good product in between, if we got a good product on that neon court in San Francisco, maybe we wouldn't complain as much because we'd be like, man, all this extra stuff in between, it was stupid. But man, did we get some good games? Can't say that because we didn't. That's where it starts. There's not one All-Star game in my entire life, and I went to one. I went to every event when the All-Star game was in Denver. And I don't remember a single thing outside of the game itself. I don't remember what musician performed. I don't know what celebrities played in the celebrity game. I don't remember the dunk contest. I don't remember anything. Was that the one where Chris Anderson had to try like 9 times to dunk the ball? Was that the Denver one? That was one of them. I didn't remember any of that. I remember the All-Star game. That's the key. And it's amazing to think, right? The answer to the All-Star game is a better All-Star game. It's not to bring in more YouTube stars. It's not to let next year Nikki Glazer do a 3-hour stand-up routine. It's have a better game. And who ultimately is capable of giving us a better game? Not Adam Silver. It's the players. But no, it's our fault because we complain too much. Maybe we should do away with it and just let the NHL do an All-Star game because they do it right. Took them a while, but they got it right with the Four Nations face-off. Let's talk about that and what to expect on Thursday coming up next. Brett checks in on the text line saying that he actually won the last dunk contest that was in Denver. You very well may have, Brett. I literally do not remember. And I was there. I don't remember it. I remember the other one, right? Every once in a while, the slam dunk contest can be remembered for years to come. But ultimately, if you're going to fix the All-Star game, it's not about the dunk contest, the three-point contest, the skills competition, the concert, all this kind of stuff. It's about the game itself. And ultimately, the players have the most say in how good that game is. You saw bits and pieces, right? I thought Wemby was trying really hard. Some guys look like they were going all out, and then they kind of back off. And the image you're left with in those games is just of a bunch of players goofing off. And that's not what we want. We want the best players in the world playing hard against each other. It's really pretty simple. Really not that difficult to comprehend, even though it seems to elude Kevin Durant. But now we have the Four Nations face-off. And next year we'll have the Olympics. And then they'll probably go back to the All-Star game, which I would caution Gary Bettman against. I would not go backwards. Because I don't think we'll get tired of it. That's the inevitable question, right? Well, at some point, if we keep doing these international, you're going to get tired of it. No, I don't think we will. I don't think we will. Because it brings something out of us as sports fans. I don't know. Even if we would get tired of it, how many years would it take? Right? 4 years from now, they're bringing back the World Cup of hockey, which is going to be like 18. Okay, so we're not going to get tired of it then because there will be new teams. Maybe Russia will be a part of it by then. Who knows? But we'll have more teams in. Like, I don't know what the shelf life of country versus country is, but I know they haven't hit it yet. It hasn't. 4.4 million people tuned in before either of the Tkachuk brothers threw a fist. I'm fascinated to find out how many people watch on Thursday. Because we will be getting the rematch. Got a little dicey there at the end for our friends to the north. But they ultimately do hang on to beat Finland today to set up the rematch, which is probably what we expected it to be going into the tournament. But there was even more like before that was what we would think and we thought would happen. After what happened Saturday, that's what we needed to happen. Was Canada and the U.S. to play again. And that's what we'll get on Thursday. Tonight, the U.S. is going to play Sweden. A bunch of lineup changes. Matthew Tkachuk's not playing. Jake Ottinger will be in goal instead of Connor Hellebuck. So Mike Sullivan's going to give some guys some rest to be ready for Thursday against Canada. But I thought John Cooper today pushed a lot of the right buttons. He took Connor McDavid off of Nathan McKinnon's line. And those two guys scored the first 2 goals of the game today. Cale Makar was back in the lineup after he missed Saturday. That's another added element. No Cale Makar for Canada on Saturday. how much can he impact things on Thursday? Knowing Cale Makar the way that you do, I bet you would say that he could impact the game greatly on Thursday. I get it. I get why Canadian fans would be a little bit uneasy about Jordan Binnington getting the nod today, but I think it's such a short tournament. I think they set, unless something catastrophic happens, and even though losing to the U.S. is not good for Canada, they had every reason to go back to Binnington. The question is, you can't do better than Binnington. And I think the answer is maybe not. But yeah, U.S. has Connor Hellebuck, and then they can go to Jake Ottinger, and Canada has Jordan Binnington backed up by Aiden Hill. I don't know all told if it will prove out that the U.S. is better than Canada on Thursday, but I promise you our goalies are better by a wide margin. But that's kind of what makes the matchup so fascinating. Because you can't, there's no, the Tkachuk brothers are great. Austin Matthews is an MVP. But I mean, just watching Sidney Crosby, well, for Saturday, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid all out there at the same time with the ability to have Cale Makar on the back end, like that's just stupid amount of talent. So I would say Canada forward lines, deep pairings, probably better than the U.S. U.S. goaltenders are better. And I think that's kind of what played out for the most part on Saturday. I think Hellebuck was pretty good, but we'll see what ends up happening on Thursday in Boston. And, of course, there's the other part of this, which is what will happen during the national anthem. They keep asking people not to boo. I think there is a 0% chance that the Canadian anthem will go without being booed in Boston. It is. And I'm not here to speak on how unfortunate or fortunate that situation is, but I'm here to tell you there's no way the fans in Boston are going to be like, yeah, Montreal booed our national anthem, but we're not. I mean, you would love to be able to say, American fans taking the high road. Nope, they're going to boo it. And two wrongs don't make a right and all that kind of stuff, that's fine. I fully expect Boston fans to boo the national anthem. I was actually surprised today that given that the game was in Boston, a fair amount of people would not have a dog in the fight, whether it's Canada or Finland. They just want to go and watch these teams play. I'm surprised I didn't hear any boos during the Canadian anthem this afternoon. Is that because TNT is turning down the crowd mic? Maybe. But I promise you that the majority of people going in to TD Garden on Thursday are going with every intention of booing when the Canadian anthem is played. So I think we're going to see that. And again, I'm not going to get into a conversation about that. I'm just telling you what I think will happen. But I will say, too, I don't believe that we're going to see 3 fights in 9 seconds on Thursday. I don't. I think these players, they had to know in the back of their mind that this was going to be the matchup. They were going to see each other again. I think with what's on the line, I think it's more I'm going to say appropriate, and I don't mean this. I loved the fighting. I loved it. I loved that the U.S. dropped the gloves and got into 3 fights in 9 seconds. I thought it was awesome. But I think given that this is for the tournament, this is to win the tournament, I don't think we're going to see the fight. So if people are tuning in on Thursday to see Canada retaliate, I don't think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see plenty of physicality. I think you're going to see huge hits. I think you're going to see the best players in the world look like the best players in the world. They're going to be locked in and focused, and I think that should be enough with the stakes on top of it to get a really good game on Thursday. I think a lot of it had to do with we're going to see these guys again. Let's send a little bit of a message, and we'll see how Canada responds in that way. But I don't expect them to start picking fights. And I don't think that they should. This game, if this event is shaping up to be what I think it's shaping up to be, like this thing that we don't ever want to go back from, we want this all the time, then the championship game of this tournament needs to stand alone. It can't be about the fights or anything like that. It can be earlier, but Thursday night, it's got to be about the hockey. The skating, the shooting, that kind of stuff, not fists being thrown. But emotions will be high. There's no doubt about that. So I wouldn't put it past anyone to drop the gloves, but I don't think it'll be a coordinated, pre-planned thing like it was for Team USA on Saturday. 719-24-7, 1313. Take your thoughts on the Four Nations face-off. We'll have more Drive Time Sports after this on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. The NFL offseason not too far away. Lot of decisions that the Broncos need to make if they are going to keep down this path of toppling the Kansas City Chiefs and eventually ending up back in that football game that is played now in the middle of February. One decision that should be easy. George Paton, Sean Payton weighing a lot of things, discussing a lot of topics, a lot of different players. The Broncos should want no part in a reunion with Von Miller. It's being reported today that the Bills are going to release Von Miller, or at least seriously thinking about it. The Broncos should not bring in Von Miller. When he was traded to LA, I know the sentiment was, one day Von would be back, and he still hasn't been back. He has had other opportunities to come back to Denver, never has wanted to. So there's something right there, right? Everyone's like, oh, he's going to come back. Broncos are going to game the system. They're going to trade him, and he's just going to come right back. Well, he didn't do that. You know why? Because he wanted to play for Super Bowls. So I don't even know if Von Miller would want to come back to Denver. Maybe if his options were limited, maybe he'd want to. The Broncos should want no part of this. Not for any anti-Von Miller reason. But at the time when the Broncos traded Von Miller, and there was so much sentiment about Von Miller coming back, the Broncos were in a different place. Right? The Broncos were in a place that was kind of a dark place. Right? The realization that you have to trade one of the most important players in your franchise's history because you are not nearly good enough with him to do anything. So you got to move on. The arcs of Von Miller and the Broncos, they were different trajectories. Broncos needed to rebuild. Broncos needed to stock up on draft capital. Von Miller was one of the very few assets that they could have gotten anything back for. But a lot of the sentiment to hopefully Von Miller comes back had to do with, well, what else do the Broncos have to hope for? I mean, really, right? If you're going to get all sentimental about getting Von Miller back, even if it means he is a diminished player from what he once was, it's just nostalgia. And teams that are on the path that the Broncos are on should not be concerning themselves with nostalgia. There is literally no reason to bring in Von Miller. That is the one position, if they're going to stay with this defensive scheme, no reason to bring him back. You have Benito with the season he had. You just signed Jonathan Cooper. No. Why bring him in for what? To be a third down rusher? It would make zero sense. Let the Rockies, after Nolan Arenado ends up wherever he's going to end up, and then is at the tail end of his career, let the Rockies reach back out and try to get Nolan Arenado to close out his career with the Rockies. Let them do that. They got nothing better to do. Broncos have a real chance here to improve upon what they did this year and really need to. Right? How acceptable would it be around here if the Denver Broncos missed the playoffs last year? And yet, that is a very real possibility sitting here today. Very real. There is no guarantee that this Broncos team, as currently constructed, is going to make the playoffs. They just barely got in as it was. And now you're going to spend some of your time, some of the money that you have, which isn't bottomless. It's not a bottomless pit of money yet, or at least in terms of the salary cap. Like maybe Greg Penner has a bottomless pit of money. And the Broncos can do some things, but it's still a salary cap league. I think that it was unfortunate that the Broncos let themselves get to the point where they couldn't do anything despite having a generational talent in Von Miller on their roster. They just couldn't win games. They couldn't do anything. It's unfortunate because you never want to see a face of the franchise type guy get traded in his prime. And that's what the Broncos had to do for the betterment of their franchise. But you can't go back and what? It's going to right the wrong? Can Von Miller help the Denver Broncos win football games next year? We're talking about the Joker role. We're talking about secondary help. We're talking about defensive line depth. We're talking about running backs. Where does an aging Von Miller fit into all of this? And this is why I talked about last week about Sean Payton. How patient is he going to be? Or is he going to take a really big swing that might not be a good idea? And it would be better to just stay the course. Von Miller would fly in the face of that. You have a young team with a bunch of improving players that showed you some things this year that you're like, I want to see more of that. Why would you bring in Von Miller? Now, because Von Miller's not Myles Garrett. Okay, the guy that left Denver, he's not the one coming back to Denver if they bring him in. He's a diminished player. And all he'll be doing is taking away reps. And again, this isn't anti-Von Miller. This is just the fact of the matter. Too much time has passed. If it was the dream for many Broncos players that he would go win a Super Bowl at LA and come right back, then okay, it's a different conversation. Even though he never was going to. But some years have passed. Parties have moved on. Broncos should not be in the business of feeding fan nostalgia. Let Von Miller be a bit player on a team that's really salary cap strapped and has a need at pass rusher. Broncos don't. So I know it's going to become a big story that once Von Miller is released, and a lot of people will say reunite him with the Denver Broncos. It's not a good idea. It's funny. It might be better for Von Miller to come back to the Broncos because I don't know what his market is going to be. But I don't think it's almost a step in the wrong direction, taking a step back to be like, hey, we're going to bring back Von Miller just for feels. Plus, you really, how do you want to remember Von Miller in a Bronco uniform? The guy he was before you traded him to LA, or you want to bring him back at this stage of his career? It's better. It's better that both parties. It was better then that both parties went their separate ways, and they should stay going their separate ways. Broncos got a good thing going on. Don't need to do any of that stuff to just because it would be a neat story. Brett says, bring in Von Miller, sign him to a one-day contract and retirement as a Bronco, as it should be. That is a different conversation. If Von Miller is going to retire, then yeah, of course, do that thing. I'm talking about Von Miller rejoining the Denver Broncos in trying to help them win the AFC West. That's what I'm talking about. This ceremonious, signed one-day that's fine. Do that. Bring him in, parade him in front of the media. I'll play the audio. It'll, announce that you're going to put him in the Ring of Fame immediately. I don't know if there's a waiting period for the Ring of Fame, but do all that stuff. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. Because Von Miller should be ultimately remembered as a Denver Bronco. And he should get as many opportunities post-playing career to be honored and thanked by the city, the fan base, the organization, all that kind of stuff. I am all about it. But Von Miller is going to sign somewhere to try and play ball this year. I think. That's what I'm saying. Should not be in Denver. 1-day contract, ceremonious, yeah, all that. I'm good with all that. Maybe some shots fired. I'm just seeing this. Nathan McKinnon. So scores a goal today as Canada defeats Finland. Had to hang on. Finland pulled their goalie and scored a bunch of goals. Got really good there at the end. Nathan McKinnon. And this is what makes this international stuff so great. Avs guy. Saying, we could beat those guys. Not exactly, As far as hockey trash talk goes, that's about as savage as you're going to get. But Nathan McKinnon saying the last thing we wanted to do was go home today. We'd love to play the Americans again. We feel like we could beat those guys. We plan on playing a little bit better this time. But, of course, Matthew Tkachuk and Jordan Binnington are the ones doing the real trash talking. Chuck said the message we wanted to send is that it's our time right now, so that we're not backing down. And then Jordan Binnington, who you remember has a history with the Avalanche. I didn't hear him say that, but he's trying to make some noise, which he likes to do. We're just going to stick to our job here. And then with that, he chucked a water bottle in Matthew Tkachuk's general vicinity. I think the X factor is going to be Cale Makar. I thought Harley came in and played really well, and it's kind of this weird thing with this Four Nations face-off that Harley, despite coming in for Cale Makar and playing really well, is now not allowed to play if Cale Makar plays. Maybe need to tweak that. John Cooper was kind of blindsided by it I don't think he was blindsided. I think he was playing dumb. But a reporter asked him yesterday about it. He's like, talk to the league about that. Thomas Harley played really well in place of Cale Makar. And Canada would be even better if they let him play and Cale play. But such are the rules. They did okay today. I think you look Thursday night, Cale Makar. That's your X factor. And then you also have John Cooper today moving the lines around and putting Connor McDavid on a different line than Sid and Nathan McKinnon. And it worked. Sure, they'll stick with it on Thursday. And let me just say this, because I really can't believe I'm the first person ever to suggest this. But I tweeted out early, but it's such a great idea that has never been uttered by anybody else in the world that I feel like I want to get it out on as many platforms as I possibly can today. It would be really good if Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon played on the same team all the time. You watch those two guys play, it's almost like, I don't know how to put it. They're not of one mind, but it's almost like they're from the same school of hockey. Right? It's like that. It's kind of a bad metaphor, or analogy, but I think It's the best one I could come up with. It's almost like they learned to play hockey at the same place because they just know each other so well. And they should play together on an NHL team. Preferably within the next month. And preferably an hour up the road from here. I've never seen this anywhere. I've never seen anybody ever suggest that Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon should play on the same team. I'm just putting it out there. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I think they should. I'll leave you with that. That, I know, your mind's blown, isn't it? That's what I try to do every single day. Bring you the things that no one else, including Biz on Spitting Chicklets or every Avs fan with Photoshop available to them, has ever suggested. They've never, ever come up with the idea of Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon playing together. But it looks good. Two of them linked up again today. A couple of times, actually. What am I saying? I'm shortchanging Nathan MacKinnon. He scored twice today. But it will be Canada and the U.S. on Thursday. Like I said, I'm out on the road the rest of this week. I'm going to try to pop in when I can if my schedule allows. But it may be, we may not talk in this capacity for the rest of the week. I just, try to live your life. Okay. I'll be fine. I will be on periodically, like Wednesday morning, for some Air Force women's basketball, but definitely not tomorrow. My travel schedule, I will be in an aeroplane when this show is going on. So enjoy the rest of your President's Day. Enjoy your week in case I don't talk to you. And appreciate the interaction as always. We'll talk to you soon here on Extra Sports 1300.